Bingo. I think. Oh, call in user too. Who's that?
I don't know. Turn it off. You. Turn it off.
Hello? Calling it?
Reed,
Yep, there we are.
Cottle,
Yes.
House,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Number 5,
Mr. Raymond, do you want to meet her? Would you like to meet our new hire?
yes, if we can, she's here.
She's been dreading this all day.
Yeah.
You want to get up and introduce yourself?
Hi, I am the new Grant County Area Plan permit clerk. There we go. My name's Katie. Been here about a month, a little over a month now, and I absolutely love it. So thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Katie started off, as you can see, she's got a great personality for the front end, and as far as customer service, she's worked really well and meshed really well with the rest of the office. So far, we're extremely happy with her. So just wanted to get her up here and let you guys meet her
What's her last name?
Cable.
with a K.
Number 5 is the budget. You all had a chance to look over it. Ryan put it in our packet. Ryan, you got anything you want to say about
Uh,
it?
I've got, you guys have the beginning sheet. A lot of it is remaining the same as we did last year on the budget. We did raise garage and motors up to 15,000 from 10,000. A lot of that having to do with currently the gas they just filled the tank with is at $4.20 a gallon. A year and a half ago, we were at $1.82 a gallon. So we've already got $10,000 appropriated this year to take us up to 20,000 because we also had the differential go out and the building inspector truck and tires and brakes and the code enforcement truck. So there we raised it up to 5. Unsafe is pretty much the same. We're asking for the annual 50,000 that we normally get for unsafe buildings. We're looking to go, last year the council allowed us a new part-time position, which was Grace. She is our code enforcement secretary. Again, she's working out great also. With that, we're hoping to get her to full-time, especially with Grace. What we're finding and what we kind of already knew with Grace is, Grace is learning not 1 but 2 jobs. She is the primary backup for the permit clerk. Her primary goal is to be the backup for Nicole, to help Nicole get paperwork done so Nicole can get out into the county. We're not with Sandy quitting and everything's not as fluid as we had hoped yet, but you know, we've got on our unsafe structures, Nicole's got 11 buildings down this year so far. That beats our record of 9 by 2 already, and we're, you know, August 1st. So it is working, it is freeing her up. What I would like to see, again, with that position, because it is learning 2 positions, we are hoping to get it to full-time so there's not a lot of rollover. That is a position that fully trained will help us out tremendously, and if we are training them, will slow us down tremendously. So we're hoping they'll allow that. That's when we went last year, they only added 2 positions throughout the county. We were lucky enough to be one of them, to get that part-time. Mr. Rohrback last year said, hey, don't give up, bring it back this year. So that's what we're hoping to do. The other thing is, in speaking to Rex also wanted to add to the budget for this year, and you guys got that mid-year form in there, all our numbers for mid-year. Asking the council to go one of 2 ways, either for all members of the APC and the BZA to get paid $50 per meeting or $500 per year. I put that together in both ways to present. So that has been included in our budget for this year also.
And the reason we did that, because a lot of other committees in the county, boards, get paid for their running around for meetings. So,
And I tried to note that in the bottom that, you know, you guys,
and with
you're
gas
not
prices
just sitting
going
there.
up, I felt like at least they could do that much for us.
Okay.
Any board members, any questions?
I think that was part of the budget proposal 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, we tried
This
this
was
last
just
year,
a
the year
repeat
before.
of
Yeah.
Things when they had everything to go. One of the things we didn't speak to that I think probably we need to discuss further before we go further is setting apart the executive assistant pay from
Yes.
other full-time. What are you talking about there?
I would like to get that position set apart in a way that it would be right now, with the way it's currently paid, yearly between executive assistant and code enforcement is only a couple $100. That position, I mean, currently for Brenda or whoever's in that position is an office manager, a zoning coordinator, my assistant, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to have that position set apart. You know, my goal as Brenda retires would be to promote from within and to make it worthwhile. Right now, an extra $200 for twice the job isn't really that inviting.
So it's, again, I'm not following very well. What is it monetarily? What are we talking about?
It would just be what I've proposed is taking it
It's the first page there, at least on mine,
Yeah.
talking about the salary breakdown.
I had it worked out as far as like 5% and 3%. But I don't see it now. So what I was projecting would be either trying to get her about $2,000 higher than the other. Still giving raises to everyone in the office, but trying to set her about $2,000 higher than the next position.
So you're making this, changing it from hourly to salary? Is that
No,
what-
she's salaried. Everyone's salaried but part-time,
Everyone is salaried now, but part.
but part-time.
So what you're really saying is that you would like to move that pay, higher than the other people in the office.
Right.
Okay, at this point. What kind of increases were given a year ago?
5%.
5%.
And they're talking 10% across the board this year, which would almost make any of this.
And was there a bonus that was given as well? $2,000 or something that employees got this year?
No,
No?
not that I know
Was that just a raise, was it?
of. Yeah,
Yeah, give everybody.
yes, it was.
Everybody got $2,000.
2,000, right.
Yeah, I don't think they got a percentage, it's just flat 2,000.
I'd like to study that part more before we actually do that. Just, you know, my thought, I think we need to have more discussion about that.
Well, like I said, I think, like last year, I think I went 3% and 2%, and they went 5%, so it was,
That's great.
or no, I went 2,000, yeah, I went 2,000, 1,000, 1,000, and they went 2,000.
Well, I understand what you're trying to do here, at least I found the sheet. So you're at proposed 54.8, executive secretary going to 39,486, which must have been just over $3,700 before your sales.
Right, that's what I was
Right.
trying to do.
And then the code enforcement's 37,283, the building inspector's 36,308. And code enforcement secretary is 28,000.
Right.
Which is what we're hoping to get to.
Right.
If it goes
Right.
full-time. That's not what it is right now, because it's part-time, it's by the hour.
Right now it's
So
11.
this is the proposed.
Right.
Okay, I like it.
Do we have any more questions? Any more discussions, or? Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion, we allow this to be presented, returned in.
Well, one of the things to add to that, one of the things that we need to be aware of, budget worksheets are given to the entire county second week of June. They are due back July 1st.
Okay.
So, you know, we didn't meet in June, we didn't meet in July.
Yeah,
Last year, we talked about it when I presented August 1st, it was a, hey, where'd this come from,
yeah.
sort of thing. So, I mean, it is already turned in. We go August 18th is our budget night.
So we
Salary budget will be in September.
So we should be looking at next year around April or May, approving it?
Usually it's about second week of June. So we'd have to have a special meeting in June to get it done, because it's after our June meeting and before our July meeting.
Okay.
I mean, there's 3 weeks.
I have another question too, Ryan. Up under the garage and motors, you were moving that up. Is it enough? Have you bumped that enough to?
I think so. I think we wouldn't have needed, we have, right now, we have not touched the 10,000. We had 10,000 to start, we got an additional 10, and we have not touched it. Our last bill we got in was 1,600.
All right.
So I'm thinking if we don't have an extra $4,000 in expenses, we should be okay.
Okay.
And if not, I'll look out for it.
So we got.
Well, then I don't know if we really need a motion if it's already been turned in, right? I'll withdraw my motion. Good
So
work.
our
Or does it call
I
for it?
mean, it calls for approval.
Okay.
It's, we just don't meet, and I think last year we had talked about, you guys hadn't ever seen these before.
We've done it in different formats in the past.
Yeah, this is what the county sends out.
So since we have to have it approved, we have a motion.
Yeah.
Then I guess maybe I'll redo that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Bothwell,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reedy,
Yes.
Cottle,
Yes.
House,
Yes.
Hicks,
Yes.
Knuckles,
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yep. Todd,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Okay, number 6 on the agenda, executive session following September meeting, personnel will discuss performance review of personnel. Is required, we'll start evaluating Ryan and Kyle. 7, the rural committee will report at the September meeting what changes we think it needs to be done in our bylaws. 8, solar summit, special meeting, August 15th, 6 p.m. at the fairgrounds. Do we have any old business, any other discussions that needs to be brought up? Kyle, you have anything?
No.
Ryan, you have anything?
I sent out my director's report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
That August 15 meeting doesn't have a time on it.
6 p.m., he said.
Yeah, you said 7.
6 o'clock we'll
Yeah.
start.
But it's not on here.
Any of the board members, anybody got any concerns? If we don't, we'll go into the public input. We're gonna get 30 minutes, 5 minutes apiece to talk. So if you wanna come up to the podium,
Something else on this. It also doesn't have 4-H fairgrounds.
Not the 4-H fairground.
So we are, just to touch base on that, we are gonna publicate that 3 times.
okay. So anybody from the public would like to talk? Come up and sign the podium, at the podium.
Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Ellis, 8320 East, 852 South, Fairmount, Indiana. And I would like to talk about solar tonight. We're tight on time. Otherwise, I might have waited till the 15th. But I felt we at least needed to discuss it tonight because of everything that's happened. So here we are. You know, after months of work by this body, as well as a lot of input by the public. The APC overwhelmingly approved what I would call draft number 7. With the public's input, and then sent that on. It was 7-1 was the vote, by the way. And then sent it on to the commissioners for their review. A lot's happened, obviously. Ron Mallory is retired. Steve Wright has been appointed to take his place, so welcome, Steve. Welcome aboard. And there's been several commissioner meetings. And during the commissioner meetings, there really was just a total inability to comment. And we really couldn't get a feel from the commissioners what their concerns were and how they felt about our ordinance. So, and I'm going to use a little bit of rough language here, but it's true. They basically drug their feet during the time that we were all trying to figure out exactly where they stood on our input and what the community was trying to tell them. They refused to discuss it in public. I mean, because we tried very, very hard just to, you know, after the meeting, talking to them personally, but we really couldn't get a feel for, you know, we knew that they were just basically kind of obstructing. I don't know how else to say it. And then they rejected the APC ordinance and sent a draft 4 back. Now, draft 4 takes us way back until like the December, January timeframe. And what they sent back wasn't actually the same draft 4. It isn't until you start comparing documents that you realize they're not the same. And unfortunately, they didn't highlight the differences, which I asked personally from the lectern, how would we know what the changes were? So they said they would do that, which they did not. So they sent back draft number 4 that had been modified. So the public input was completely ignored. Setbacks were virtually eliminated if you really take a look at how they're handled now. There's no property protection. And probably most concerning is the zoning board was eliminated from the permitting process. That's how we run our businesses, everything in Grant County, but for some reason, they don't want the zoning board involved. So it feels like we're back to where we started, only worse. Draft number 4 is heavily slanted towards the solar companies. They even reduced the fees to charge the solar companies. They reduced the fees. What about our land? What about our community? What about the people that are here that are concerned about this? There's like 66,000 people from the last consensus I saw in Grant County. And, you know, almost 66,000 people are being ignored. Now, I know there's a few people that are going to benefit from this, but the large view of the public is that they'd like to take a step back and at least try to make sure and do this right. So we urge the APC to react quickly because we don't have much time. Please modify draft 7. Don't try to work with draft 4, it's a mess. And then try to address the commissioner's objections. Figure out, you know, because they did make a list of what their objections were. Look at draft 7, the one that was submitted, the one that was overwhelmingly approved by this body, and then send it back. Find some balance, try to address their needs. Specifically, try to address the IW Taylor University situation, because they're kind of caught in this, and it's become a political statement. We're not out to kill academia. We're just trying to stop from our country, our county from being exploited. We're way far apart between draft 7, which was approved, and the new draft 4. They're complicated issues requiring study. I suggest that we take the time to figure out where we're at on this thing before we move forward. I recommend, and I know others might agree, that we really think about a moratorium, because we've only got just a few days to figure this out. I think we need to find some balance. I think we need to figure out how to work with each other to not get overrun and screw our culture, quite candidly. So, Rex, I see you're watching your watch.
Yeah.
I tried to get in under 5 minutes. I thank you very much for the time to speak. And again, do not go forward with draft number 4, or it is a bad deal for this community. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Ed Hartman, 2640 East 1050 South Fairmount, Indiana. A couple things I want to bring up is that, okay, draft 4, that ordinance is different, but when you compare draft 4 to draft 7, there are a lot of differences, and some of them are very meaningful. The setback, draft 7 is 1,320 feet. It's from the solar panels to the house. Draft 4 is 300 feet from the solar panel to the house. If you live in the country and you have, say, a sizable piece of property like 5 acres, most of the setback is in your yard. The setback from your property line is the minimum of 50 feet under draft 4. If you got 250 feet in your yard, the setback's on you. They're at the minimum. Also, it's in here to protect the towns with a municipal setback of 1 mile. So they can't come close and encircle a small town and prevent it from ever growing in the next 30 years, which really is kind of a long time. At decommissioning, at the end, in the draft 4, there's no mention of recycling. Come in and salvage it, just get it off the land. That's basically draft 4. Draft 7 is the panels have to be recycled. Yeah, you can salvage the metal. Metal can be taken. Metal has value. The panels have basically no value when they're done. They're hazardous waste. and they'll be thrown in the dumps if they can be allowed to do that, because that's the cheapest way to get rid of them. But they'll also leach out into the groundwater eventually, the chemicals that are in them. In draft 7, the APC approved draft, there is a property value guarantee. Now, if you put a property value guarantee in, there is, according to the solar companies, no problem with their solar fields devaluing anybody's property. They say that over and over, but yet they are totally opposed to a property value guarantee. Now, why would you be opposed if there is no harm going to come to you from that? Because you're so confident in all the studies you've had done that there's no drop in property values. Well, there is. There are other studies that are coming out that refute that completely. And common sense would tell you, obviously, your property's going down in value if something is right next to you, it's 20 feet tall, and has a 6-foot fence around it. They could go around you on 3 or 4 sides. Proposals in Madison County were on 4 sides of residence, totally surrounded. There's a road down there where they could get in and out, but there was nothing else they'd be seeing. Okay. In 4, there's an economic development plan. That's like money from the solar companies to the county. That is not in 7. An economic development plan, those could sometimes be abused. Also, the fee is dropped from $2,000 a megawatt to $1,000 a megawatt in the new draft 4. We don't know the changes that were in draft 4. When you change a draft, it's supposed to get a new number. It should have been draft 8. It should have had changes shown. That didn't happen. Another thing that needs to be in is a recognition of how much prime farm ground is going to be lost to this project. That is called for in draft 7. That is ignored in draft 4. We're going to lose prime farm ground. We're going to shut down farming business in favor of this business. Why would we shut down one business in favor of another? Solar needs to be on worn out industrial sites, not prime farm ground. I guess my time is up.
Yeah.
Thank you for your attention. I appreciate all you've done. You've worked hard.
Anybody else want to talk?
I just point out, the APC is actually the ones who lowered the price from 2,000 down to 1,000. We also had megawatts at 1,750 is what got proposed to us originally. That was dropped down. So
I thought we left the
very
fees
clean.
open till we knew what
we
the
did
office
that through
cost.
phase 5, draft 5 and draft 6. So that was done January, February. Was when that
Anybody
changed.
else wants to talk?
Hi, I'm Linda from Usland, Linda Morgan. Uh-oh, it says print, I'm sorry. I've been involved in this from last December, I think it was. There's so much difference between the draft 4 and the draft that we presented to the commissioners that I don't see how we can even go through draft 4 and say, oh, this, and this. Or you guys, sorry, I'm not doing it. And Mr. Wright, I had a question. I was wondering if you had gotten to the solar fields yet to see what they're like.
I actually did.
Good, good. What did you think about that?
thought it was very interesting. I stopped and talked to a gentleman that was out working, and it was directly across from his home. 75-year-old man lost his wife 9 years ago, beautiful garden. He spends a lot of time outside. And I found out some things that I have a lot of questions on to ask the solar companies as well. And so in the same token, I was coming back from taking my wife to get a tooth fixed down in Fishers. And as we were coming back, and I got on 36 because I knew this MODOC property was on 36, and I passed fields of corn, fields of corn, fields of corn, fields of beans, fields of corn, for probably, I don't know, 40 miles. And then I come to the solar farm. And so, you know, I know we're very concerned about the size of the acreage that they may take, but in this case, like I say, I passed a lot of farmland in between. And I think we've got about 190,000 tillable acres here in Grant County. And it probably, I don't know, just kind of looking at it, what I know of at this point, without really meeting with the solar companies yet. I've met with two, but don't have any maps from them or anything like that. Mr. Hartman gave me some maps, or somebody gave me some maps that I'm looking at as well. But that's kind of what I noticed. Couple things that bothered me just a little bit. This was a brand new farm that was just installed this year. So it doesn't have very much time on it. I'd say a third of the buffers of the trees and things like that were already dead, which bothers me, okay? So that's a big question I have for the solar companies, because what we don't want is to come up with trees that's part grown up and some that's not. And, I mean, that kind of bothered me. The gentleman that I spoke to did mention a little bit about a noise that comes from the rotation of the panels. He said that it squeaks. I'm going to ask about that as well. He said he spends a lot of time out there. And then the other thing that bothered me just a little bit was that the gentleman said that he likes to hunt. And so some of the fields are close to that solar field, and they've had a game warden called on them 3 times for just going out and hunting. So I've been doing my homework, just trying to come up with some questions that I have for solar companies in this matter, and it does bother me that, you know, this guy lives in fact, he gave me 3 squashes out of his garden, which was very nice, a very nice man and stuff, and I didn't take it as a bribe or anything like that, but I did appreciate him offering that. He was just a nice man that you could tell was lonely because he lost his wife 9 years ago. So
He probably enjoyed talking to you.
yeah, and he was 75, and he says, you know, I'll probably never see that grow up. You know, so he's going to see a solar farm.
Yeah.
Now,
Why plant trees?
yeah, it was, and I don't want to take her time. Okay, so the other thing I noticed, these were pretty well flat to the ground. They were only probably off the ground maybe about 4 foot. So if they do get the vegetation correct on the fence and things like that, and it was right in front of his home, down ways just a little bit and stuff, so that will help out there, I think. But I think he had 2 acres where he was, and it was only on one side. It was across the street. So that's what I found.
Awesome. I am so glad you did that. Okay, so I've come up with 2 things on the recycling information. Now, I just had solar installed at my house, okay? There was a panel that broke right away. So I asked them what they do as far as recycling that panel. And they pay a company to take those panels apart. And it sounds similar to how if they're removing asbestos from a house, and they have all these regulations and special garb and all that, because there's dangerous things in there. And anything of any value, then they collect it. And then there's the glass and the metal, you know, that's not a big deal. But they have to pay, the company has to pay the recyclers. That's something that I think really needs to be addressed. If they're going to recycle or are they going to recycle? And then one other thing, as far as farmland being used, China is buying up farmland in the United States to help feed their people. I guess there's like 130,000 acres in Texas next to an Air Force base. There's a place in North Dakota they've purchased near an Air Force base. And they said in 2019, China owned 191,000 acres that was worth 1.9 billion in 2019. We don't have anything that's stopping that. So if we give up our farmland to solar, yeah, it reduces it, and yeah, we still got other fields. But there's people out there besides the solar people that want our land, and we need to remember that. That's pretty important. So I think that's what I wanted to say.
Time's up, too.
I'm good.
Sorry it took too long.
Anybody else want to talk? Still got time. Sign in there, your name, your address.
Anybody else's address is on here?
Just tell them.
I cannot actually believe that Indiana and Grant County are going to destroy hundreds, maybe thousands of acres of farm ground and put up solar panels, depending on who you talk to, 80 to 90% of them are made in China, and by all accounts, they use child labor. And this gentleman, I don't know, I can't think of your name, I'm sorry, told us that they're gonna have some kind of sticker on them
A UL listing,
that says they
or
can't be.
the equivalent, which is a
Who's gonna
year.
make the sticker?
That's,
Is it
that's,
gonna be
that's a
made in
national,
China?
that's a national listing.
But does the sticker get made in China? And who goes to check whether they got child labor or not?
UL, get with me and I'll give you a paper.
Okay. Now I lost my place, talking on it. I can't believe that we're gonna let communist people that hate us are threatening to shoot down Nancy Pelosi's plane if she tries to go someplace in the world that's free. I just can't believe that we're even thinking about wasting our land and giving them money. I don't understand why, guys.
Anybody else wants to talk? We still got a few minutes. Somebody wants to talk.
My name is Pam Whitted. I live at 7951 East, 900 South Fairmount. It's actually right on the corner of State Road 26 and Wheeling Pike. It is known as the Village of Trask. There is a historical marker right there on the corner, right near where solar fields panels will go. According to my information of the farmers that have said they would do that contract with the solar fields. I'm just going to read you what the historical marker says. I'll leave all those details of figures and everything to Mr. Atkins, Mr. Hartman, Mr. Ellis, because it's over my head. But it says Trask, like other pioneer villages, served an important commercial, social, and educational role for early settlers. The post office, 1846 to 1901, which is still there. It's Jane Thornburg's house now, marked the start and the end of Trask official existence. As travel improved, such villages disappeared or remained as residential communities like Trask. This sign was erected, I believe it was in 1999, by the Indiana Historical Bureau. I have made contact with the Historical Society, and I'm still waiting on callbacks on that, to see if indeed they put something like this up. I would think it would have some type of protection to keep the value from being defaced by solar panels that is literally going to be in the side of our yard. And like, I don't remember if I said, but we live in the old schoolhouse, which was the new Mulberry Schoolhouse. And we've kept the exterior and as much of the interior true to what it was. Like, we did not cover up the front of the building that has like the trustee and all those people. Even though we live in it as our home, we wanted it to be known, and it is listed in the book that we have actually at home of historical sites in Indiana. I would like you to keep that in mind.
We have time for one more person.
Randy Atkins, 8560 South, Wheeling Pike, Fairmount, Indiana. And Pam's place is a beautiful place. If you guys ever get out in our neighborhood, please take a look. They've done a great job restoring that. You know, I started this deal back in February, and I didn't know much about area planning. I didn't know about Board of Zoning Appeals. And what I've learned, I think, and please correct me if it's not correct, is that an ordinance should originate from this board that we have in front of us today. And that ordinance should be developed based on the consideration of the community tolerance and based on the community input that's fed into it. And I think what bothered me, and I'm going to name some names, and I apologize for that, but as I sat through early, I noticed that based on some comments that Brian had made and Chuck had made as the chairperson at that time, that this isn't going to be accepted by the commissioners. I heard that 2 or 3 times. And that concerns me, because that's not where the process is supposed to start with the commissioners. It's supposed to start with this board. And the fact that this board overwhelmingly accepted an ordinance that was presented to the commissioners, and I attended every commissioner's meeting from the point it was given to them until the point that they sent it back. There was no discussion whatsoever about that ordinance that was given to them by the proper procedure that took place. Instead, there was an ordinance that was given back that I don't think had public input. I'm not sure that you guys even knew what was in that ordinance. I don't know that. But the fact that the commissioners totally circumvented the process creates mistrust as a lifelong Grant County resident in our county government. That's not the way the process is supposed to go. It's supposed to start here. The commissioners are supposed to provide feedback to us in regard to what's not acceptable in that ordinance that the APC presented to them. And we did not receive that feedback. And it bothers me. It bothers me that it's gone that way. And I respect you guys for listening to the community. And Steve, you're our breath of air, man. You know, there was not any discussion about an ordinance until you came at your first commissioners meeting and you shared with us what your thoughts were. And that means a lot. And I hope that you hear the people. And I know there's so many people in this county, and I know you have to represent all of them. And I hear every time that I talk to somebody about landowner rights. We have zoning in order to protect those residents that are going to be impacted by that landowner's decision. That's why we have zoning. So let's protect those people that are going to be impacted by the decisions those landowners make. Pam should not have to have solar panels on two sides of her house. They've never been there before. Give her some protection. Give her the setback that protects her from having to look out her window and see those solar panels. Setbacks are huge. I don't care whether the solar companies like them or not. We're not here for the solar companies. Nobody's been able to tell me the money yet. I know money's driving this. Yeah, there's going to be money the solar companies are going to give. I understand that. Somebody ought to have a number. Commissioners ought to know. You ought to share with us what that money figure is going to be based on the solar panels that it appears you're going to support to put in. I'm hurt by what's going on in this county over the last 4 or 5 months. I hope we can get it right. Thank you.
This time, do we have
Mr. Mayor.
anybody in the audience?
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please. I'd like to address some of the comments that Mr. Malat made after people spoke.
Here in a minute.
Okay.
Anybody here for solar that would like to talk? Anybody here for solar that would like to talk? If you don't, Ed, you can come up and speak for 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. If I heard correctly, Mr. Malat said the APC reduced the fee from 2,000 to 1,000. There's the new draft 4 with it in there as 1,000. If you want to see a previous draft 4, there it is at 2,000. We weren't notified of that change. And I was at every APC meeting, and I don't remember you guys making that change. Do you remember making that change?
No.
Okay. That's a bunch of us that don't remember that change. That change was slipped in. And who would want that? The solar companies? Are we doing this just for them? Is that what this is all about? We're going to grovel to the solar companies? Please, please come. Are we the economic development people saying, please, please come. We need a win here. We need something. Are they stepping back and dictating draft 4? Sure seems like it. Are we that desperate here? And the issue of secrecy surrounding this whole process, it sure leads to a mistrust of our government officials. They're going to have to do better to earn back any kind of community trust. When you're doing things, does anybody know where these solar farms go? Have they even said? We could have put it in the ordinance that they have to say up front, a year ahead of time, where they're going. If people know the facts, is this suddenly a bad idea? But if we keep it as a secret, and nobody knows, maybe we can slip it in here. Is that the process? If that's the process, it's not a good process. It needs fixed. Another thing in this ordinance is it changes every significant decision from the standard way of doing things to the commissioners approve it. What kind of process is that? You have a zoning board to make zoning decisions. Commissioners have no reason to be involved in zoning decisions. The only thing they should be doing is approving a zoning ordinance. That's their role. As far as setting the fees, Mr. Malat's correct. The APC should set the fees. They should not be in this ordinance. They are not in draft 7. The APC should review and approve the development plan. That's the way it is in state code. We can look it up. That's not the way it's in the commissioner's ordinance. They approve the development plan. They approve everything when you get right down to it. 2 of them approve it. All of it. Is that where you want it to be? If not, they need to hear from you. And if they won't listen, they need to hear more.
Time's up.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to adjourn. Got a motion to adjourn? Meeting adjourned.
I need to get in the minutes.
And I can't.